So these are my people. Three generations, great aunts, great great grandparents, great grandparents, grandparents, first, second, third cousins. They're from Crockett, Texas. It's a small town about 150 miles or so outside of Houston. My ancestry in this place dates back as far as the mid-1800s, and before that it was Fordyce, Texas, and before that it was a small rural place just outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, whose name I can't recall. My family's relationship to the southernmost region of North America is nothing unique. It has all of the American staples: displacement, hand-picked bulbs of cotton, tobacco, flowers, and other earthen roots, stewing cauldrons with pots of peas, tea brewing in the windowsill, skillets of gravy, pot bellies for biscuits, and the warming of two seasons, weeping willow trees. Hands, a lot to do with hands and riverside baptisms for praying and clapping and sewing, and hard work, but still soft to touch. A sensual people filled with dreams. Dreams of leaving the confines of forced land servitude and entering the city, washing their feet of red dirt and finding their ways atop the pavement, the concrete. And even in these new places, these urban city places, there still lingered the dreams before departure. Dreams of color and color-changing butterflies and faces at the bottom of the sea speaking and wishing wells and moaning trees. Dreams that most wouldn't understand. Daydreams, night dreams, and in between flashes and visions. I come from a dreaming people. Now, I too dream dreams. And I managed to forget the major details of many of my dreams, but there is this one, something to this dream that won't leave me. It was a lady. It was of a lady. A lady, she was standing in the center of an intersection. And she was crying and she was screaming and she was pleading for help in finding her baby. Her child was somehow in the sewage gutter. No one knows how the baby got there. It simply was there, covered in bile, sludge, and goo. And people drive and walk by these gutters all the time. A familiar place, but still so unexpected for a child. Well, the mother is pacing and she's pleading that someone help her to retrieve this child, but no one seems to notice. Everyone's consumed in their own world. And then she points to me. And then she points to the gutter. And I look into the sewage drain. I peek into the gutter and sure enough, there is a child there. But the odd thing is when I go to reach for the baby, shoulder up to my neck and chest and goo, the baby just giggle and submerge and retreat as if it didn't want to be found, as if this were a game. The mother, she'd scream and scream and scream to the point that she fainted. I wanted to help her. And then I wake up. So I told my grandfather about the dream. The dream about the mother and the baby and the sewage. And the way that she wore this cream sort of satin or heavy starched cotton nightgown, and that there were tears crusted over in the corners of her eyes, and that the creases of her lips were lined in heavy saliva. Her face was frantic, and she was truly, truly wanting and worried, and still to no avail had no access to. Now, my grandfather sort of blankishly looked at me after sharing such an intense dream, namely because well, the women in my family are the ones who are most public about their abilities or their accesses to the dream world. It's not something really the men in my family stake claim to. What that says about me, I have no idea, but it did bring out of my grandfather the story of my great 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 grandfather Jack, who went missing. He went missing shortly after witnessing the birth of his son Solomon in 1903. No one knows how or where he went, and plenty of people that they assumed that he was lynched by a mob, slaughtered by the Klan, because at that time, at any time, being a black man was a complicated complexity. But I sort of have this the innocent notion and strong desire to not want to believe such a thing, and just want for Jack to have walked and walked and walked and walked to Mexico to start a life anew. Or maybe he was abducted by a UFO and taken into the stars. Anything different from this land or this place or space, but not a tragic death. So that got me to thinking about spaces and spices, spices in cupboards in the kitchen, in the corners, near the stove. The spicy spices like paprika and chilies and cloves and nutmeg and mustard all mixed together, that the trail of one's aroma, how one's scent could be covered by these sorts of spices, and how many and plenty of runaway captives in this institution that was enslavement from plantations, they would use these spices to dilute and diverge their tracks. And I wonder if Jack used them, if he used a similar remedy to find a place anew. Somehow, in some way, I just assume so slightly that somehow the baby in my dream is very much so related to Jack, and that it sent me on this quest to seeking and searching and finding and wanting some sort of answer or some reconciliation with the past in this present moment, because that dream was so real and so visceral and tangible that for quite some time I was unable to sleep. But for quite some time the recesses of my imaginings often found themselves muddled and stewed and stirred so much and so deep that this waking life was interrupting. And so I packed a bag, after pleading and petitioning with my grandfather to motion and migrate to the place where he'd assumed Jack to have last been seen, so that I could listen, so that I could look and peer and poke and prod questions, knowing that it had been well over 100 years since his disappearance, but feeling the feelings felt after that dream, I knew that there was a reason. So Granny, Grandpa, and myself, we piled into the car and we drove some 100 miles. And it was amazing to smell the freshly fallen dew beneath the afternoon rays of the sun, as Granny and Grandpa would recall recollections in the fields, those far-off distant fields where they'd pick the bulbs of cotton early in childhood. And they'd sing songs of remembrance, and they'd shed tears for libation for those memories before. Something in the way of asking questions and harassing family for memories they chose not to forget as this way of activating or opening windows and circulating ideas and feelings and emotions that for so long had grown stale and dusty and dormant. And in this quest and in this hunger and this tenacious want to reconcile something, I was able to resurface another. It's funny, an old lady once told me, when you uncover something, you cover another. When something's uncovered, another is concealed.